Hi, I'm Tom Luna. I'm a former school board member. I was privileged to serve as senior advisor to U.S. Secretary of Education Rod Page. I also had the honor of serving for 8 years as Idaho State Superintendent of Public Instruction. During that time, I also served as president of the Council of Chief State School Officers. One thing I have learned in all these experiences is that educating children is not rocket science, it's more complicated. On my podcast, Swimming Upstream, we will visit with courageous leaders who challenge the prevailing tide and inspire all of us to swim against the current. Let's jump in. Welcome to another episode of Swimming Upstream. I'm Tom Luna, your host, and today we are joined by Katie Jenner, the Secretary of Education for the great state of Indiana. And Katie, you've been on the show before with us, and I want to thank you for joining us. And you've got a lot of new things going on in Indiana. There always seems to be new things going on in Indiana to improve the education opportunities for students. So again, thank you for being here with us on Swimming Upstream.
Tom, it's always great to see you, and I always enjoy hearing the different state chiefs or education leaders you highlight. So it's an honor to join you today.
Wonderful. And just want to remind folks, you've been in office for now 5 years.
This is year 5, going
year
into
five,
year 5.
And remind me, you were the first appointed. Walk us through that, because Indiana had an elected state official, and now there's only a dozen left across the country after Indiana changed. But walk us through that real quick.
Yeah, sure. So Indiana had been an elected superintendent of public instruction for years, and we actually had Democrat and Republican governors who worked to get it changed to an appointed, because of course, like many states, Indiana's state budget, it's 50% education.
Yeah.
So the governor definitely wanted to be a part of that conversation. It's key that he or she is. So in January 2021, Governor Holcomb had an opportunity to appoint the first Secretary of Education in Indiana. He asked me to step into that role. And of course, Governor Holcomb was term limited. So we have a new governor in Indiana, and that is Governor Mike Braun. So I'm still here, and thrilled to be working with Governor Braun and the great state of Indiana.
Well, there's a lot of great things going on in Indiana. Let's talk about a few of them. Let's just start where we all know that the most important factor in a student's success once they walk into the school is the quality of the teacher in the classroom. And a lot of states are struggling with teacher shortages and finding ways to fill that gap, and then also just teacher quality as a whole. Talk to us about some of the things happening in Indiana to address those needs and those issues.
Sure. So when our team came in January of 2021, of course, that was immediately a topic that was hitting us, is the question of what does the teacher shortage look like? Is it regional? Is it by content area?
Yeah.
Is it grade level? So we really leaned in and started with the data. And what we quickly realized is that we could do better with the data in this space to better understand the problem statement, to drive towards the solution, and invest in the solution. So we launched, Tom, an Educator supply demand marketplace. So the demand side was the first portion that was launched, and that shows and it's publicly transparent. You could see it now, but it shows every open teaching position in the state of Indiana, all of our public schools, many of our non-public schools as well. And then the supply side came after, and that's anyone in the talent pipeline to be an educator. So whether that's an educator prep program, whether higher ed or otherwise, just getting a sense of who is in our pipeline so that we could really begin to understand the scope of the problem and connect the supply with the demand. It's driven up applicants in our schools, because now teachers don't have to apply for one school district. They can do a radius around where they're willing to drive and say, I was a high school business teacher, so I could put that in and see what positions are available.
So
So
it's an interactive site then.
it is. It's
Yeah,
interactive.
that's
And the other thing I would add is back to that original statement of we weren't clear-eyed on the very granular pieces of our data so that we could solve the problem. And what we quickly realized after launching the supply demand marketplace for our educators is our number one need is special education
yeah,
teachers.
yeah,
Some regions need it more than others. Our second is English language certified teachers. And our third is STEM teachers. And then from there, we have developed recruitment initiatives, if you will, that are targeted for each one of those specific areas. And we have hundreds of teachers who've gone through each of those training programs and are now in our classrooms actively. So a lot more efficient, a lot more focused
yeah.
use of how we spend our dollars.
In order to satisfy the, you know what the demand is, the supply. What are some of the things that Indiana does? In you mentioned giving teachers that are already certified the ability to get the training and stuff so that they can teach in other and get certificated in other disciplines. How has like alternative routes to teacher certification for somebody like already has a bachelor's degree and decides later in life that they'd like to be a teacher?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we're seeing a both and. So some of our teachers who are certified in one area who are thinking, I might want to teach in this as well. They're absolutely going through the various opportunities, but I think one of the areas that's most exciting is what you just shared. It's those people who maybe selected another profession at first and realize the calling to be an educator a little later and want to
Yeah,
switch, but they don't want to go back to school
yeah,
for 4 more years or whatever it might be. So they are able to actively get into our classroom and simultaneously get that training
yeah.
while on the job.
Because
It's
they have
kind
the
of like an
content
apprenticeship.
knowledge, right? You
That's
content
right.
knowledge, and so that's wonderful. I think those things that you're doing to address teacher shortage, but at the same time not sacrifice quality, right? And
Exactly.
that's absolutely important. Let's talk about one of the things that really got my attention when I was kind of preparing for this, and I always tend to pay attention to Indiana because I served as Idaho State Superintendent at the same time Tony Bennett was a superintendent there in Indiana. We got to be very good friends, and we used to spar a lot about which I state was getting it done, Idaho or Indiana, right? And but anyways, I digress. What you've done with student graduation requirements, because whatever those requirements are, that is what's going to drive what the school offers and what the parents want their students to take, right?
Right.
And sometimes what those requirements, those graduation requirements, what they require doesn't necessarily line up with what is needed if they want to pursue paths after high school. So talk about what you've done with graduation requirements
Sure.
and taking steps forward to assure that when kids leave high school, they're prepared for the world that awaits them.
So, one of the scenarios that we thought about early on, and I'd ask you and anyone listening to think through. Think about the oldest person you know who graduated from an American high school somewhere in our country, and let's say you ask them, "Show me your transcript," and then you ask a senior in high school today, "Show me your transcript." It is almost identical.
Yes.
And yet the
Yeah.
world around us has changed so much. The technological advances continue and are almost compressed to move faster. So that was happening, right? Or that's part of it. But then the other thing we were seeing in Indiana is, you see these data points. Our college going rate continues to go down. employers are saying we need to improve the skills we're providing to our students: communication, collaboration, work ethic as examples. We're hearing from our military saying that some of their numbers are hitting a low in terms of students who want to serve our country, who are being disqualified
That's
after
right.
they walk across the graduation stage for high school. They're disqualified and can't live that dream. And then the fourth big element is student apathy is really at an all-time high in our country, and especially at high schools. And we're seeing that in Indiana. And specifically, one of the data points you can look at is the chronic absenteeism, which in Indiana is an inverted bell curve. So at the height, our high school students are missing a significant amount of school. And as an example, while Indiana's data and chronic absenteeism looks better than the national average, our seniors in Indiana, about a third are missing a month or more of school.
Wow.
When we bring them to the table, what they share is, I just don't really see the value.
Yeah, they don't see relevance.
Exactly. So we had to urgently really look in the mirror and say, how do we light the fire of purpose in kids? How do we show them what their value is and the possibilities for their life's path? And so we added a significant amount of flexibility and personalization for the students. There are core areas that they have to have, absolutely. But then their junior and senior year, Tom, we're doing everything we can to better leverage the college credit they're earning. If they can earn a market-driven credential of value, as an example, that's educational attainment, to also better leverage the junior and senior year for more work-based learning opportunities, whether it's an apprenticeship or simply like an internship with a local business. And that has been the debate of 2024 in Indiana. And we were able to successfully pass a diploma rule in December of 2024, despite a lot of friction during the process. But that was good friction that we experienced during the summer, because that led us to the result and the consensus, and we're better for it today.
Yeah. Many states have attempted to do what you've done, and some have done forms of it when it comes to graduation requirements and making them more relevant. Some of the objections tend to be, at least initially, that somehow you're sorting kids, or you are, maybe labeling kids that you're not capable of meeting a standard that would prepare you for college. And so we're going to, have different requirements for you to go into the workforce. You and I both know that's not the case, but share with us some of your thoughts. And you were able to, you said it was good conversation and you ended up in a good place, but you still had the conversation. And what were how did that play out? And where did you find that, that compromise or that comfort level?
So that's a really important conversation to have as a state. And we certainly had that in Indiana. We have three different potential SEAL paths, if you will, that are rigorous and robust. One is enrollment, where we work straight with higher education institutions in Indiana. One is employment, where we work straight with business and industry and higher ed, because the systems should be blurred and connected. And then the third area is enlistment and service. So it could even include police and fire.
Yeah.
The students in Indiana can earn one SEAL. They could earn multiple SEALs if they have multiple interest areas. We expect to see that for sure. But that was a big conversation in Indiana, a very important one. And again, looking back over 2024, the push and pull that we had from higher education, because it does impact their business model. When students can earn a credential in high school and stack that in, the parents and families who wanted to make sure that their students were best set up for success ahead. Parents and families, by the way, many came to the table and talked to us at first about how it's not working today for their
Yeah.
child. And so they gave us a lot of insights into how it could be better ahead. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, hearing straight from students, um, listening to, who we are actually serving and trying to get prepared. And then of course, business and industry, and our military branches. So many people came to the table, but that friction was very, very necessary to get us to the consensus that we have today. I mean, we have support from all of our higher ed institutions, many business and industry leaders, local elected officials, state elected officials, philanthropy. I could go on, but
Yeah.
it was a process getting there. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, and it's a great model for others to show. And when students see relevance in what they're learning, rigor will take care of itself, right? And in most cases, but too often when kids don't see relevance, it's very difficult for them to to perform it, to get them to perform at their best. So just to sum it up real quick, if an Indiana high school student they're pursuing a diploma that assures that they have a basic, I don't want to use the word basic, that they have a body of knowledge that everybody needs when they graduate from high school, and then they have the opportunity to get seals that help them focus on specific areas of careers after high school, whether they go into higher ed, go into the workforce, or go into a military type thing, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and one component that you're going to hear more about over the next few months, uh, we're going to be further connecting the systems, if you will, blurring the lines between K-12 higher education and workforce. And I have the seals right here.
There you
The
go.
seals should be the recipe for
Yeah,
success for students. So they're not at their junior or senior year walking across the stage being told, you're disqualified here. You're
yeah,
not going to be
yeah.
admitted
That's not what
here.
we're talking about.
So,
Yeah,
so one of the things that you're going to hear more about is, I mean, we're even in discussions with our higher ed to potentially direct admit certain diploma seals, like as
yeah,
if you get this, you're in.
yeah.
Or business and industry. If you get this,
So that
uh,
seal has value. It has market value, right?
exactly,
Yeah, there you
it
go.
has
Yeah,
currency,
yeah, your
and
currency. Yeah.
um, you're going to hear more and more about that in the coming months.
Well, we will be interested in learning more and more about it, right? And I've often I learned, and it's often still the case when I look into it, is that oftentimes the entry level knowledge needed for many of the careers that are available out of high school are just as rigorous as those needed to go into higher ed, right? Your abilities in math and problem solving and communications. So it's not an easy path to go right into the workforce, because oftentimes those skills that you need are high also, and those talents.
Thinking about the skill development, for so long we've done the best we can to build the skills within the four walls of a classroom, but we know
Yeah,
that skill development is best done by actually doing
yeah,
and
yeah,
practicing
yeah,
and being in the work environment. So we've got to get out of our own way as states and as schools with barriers up sometimes to support our students in getting out of the classroom and having these experiences to best develop their skills and their network ahead.
yeah. Wonderful. Let's shift gears real quick. I want to wrap up our conversation, but spend a few minutes talking about the recent NAEP scores that have been released. And there's a lot of information in there. Nationally, we can see trends that we're all alarmed about, right? And we see that there's still that the pandemic definitely has still had an impact on student learning. Um, um, but Indiana is one of those few bright lights in this, and it's not by accident. And so that's what I want to focus on. Indiana, you struggled with the same pandemic and isolation and the learning loss that occurred. Talk about some of those things that you did that were deliberately focused on getting kids back up to grade level and above, and some of the results that you've seen as a result of your efforts and that we see now in these NAEP scores.
Well, thank you, Tom, for the question. I think we learned a lot through studying the NAEP data in our state and in other states. In reading, we did see some bright points. We saw, of course, the nation unfortunately went down in scores. Indiana went up in reading scores. We jumped to sixth in the nation for fourth grade reading, which is the highest we've ever been in that particular grade level. I'm most excited about, forget the ranking, I'm most excited about when you look at the growth of children and you think about the percentiles of where children fall. Our nation has seen, the high flyers, the 75th and 90th percentile students growing. We did see that in Indiana, but our largest growth was in our lowest students.
Yeah.
Our 10th percentile, our 25th percentile, and that was absolutely, we believe, because of, quite frankly, the copy and paste of the Mississippi Miracle. We took whatever we could learn from Mississippi and what they've been doing, and have moved it into Indiana with the various educator support and with our current educators, literacy cadres for them, with our future educators, really holding our education prep programs accountable to ensure they're aligned with science of reading. I could go on and on that topic, but I will share, Tom, we were not a bright spot in math. And if you look at Indiana's ranking, you'd be like, well, actually, Indiana's pretty good. Our ranking, fourth grade was number 9 in the nation for math. Our 8th grade math was number 13. But when you dig into the data, we just did not grow.
Yeah.
Just did not grow kids like we need to. And so we had a big discussion at our State Board of Education meeting in February on this topic. And while the nation sees it as kind of doom and gloom for NAEP scores, we really see like what an opportunity to supercharge. Let's take what we've learned in reading and the movement and growth there, and let's deploy it in mathematics and really push there. So again, we had some bright spots, but we also had some not bright spots, and we're calling both out.
Yeah, and congratulations for being that transparent, right? Because it's easy when NAEP scores come out. I served on the NAEP board for 5 years, and one of my responsibilities, I was chair of the committee that was responsible for disseminating information across the states. And it's not easy to dissect NAEP scores. It should be easier. I didn't get everything done I wanted to, but that's another story. But it should be easier to dissect those scores, and because it's not easy, sometimes it's not as transparent as it could be. So good for you for recognizing that there is some bright spots there, and I'm impressed with what you did with reading and the fact that you recognize that there are things going on in other states that you can learn from, right? And take advantage of that. So with that,
and I'll tell you, Tom, this morning when I met with the team, we were whiteboarding on mathematics and again how to learn from reading. But we had the other states' data pulled up, and I have 3 state chiefs that I plan to call later today or early next week to ask them, how did you move in math? What are you doing?
Perfect. Yeah.
So we'll continue to again celebrate what we can, but also learn from others and
Right.
keep pushing to do better.
Well, with that, we want to thank you for being on Swimming Upstream, and you're a great example of just what the title of the show is, right? And that is, swimming upstream is not the easiest path to take, and oftentimes the current is pretty strong, working against you. But Indiana has done some great things, and we've been able to highlight a few of those. Katie, we have one thing that we always end our show with. And I think you remember, what is one interesting fact about Indiana that most people would not be aware of?
So, Tom, I actually came prepared today because I now do know this is a question. So, in Indiana, we've been really focused on increasing our STEM and robotics opportunities for students. So, Indiana has the largest robotics national championship. We actually host that at Lucas Oil Stadium where the Colts play. It's major
Oh, wow.
celebration in Indiana. We have over 1,500 elementary and middle school robotics teams, which is more than any other state. So there's my competitiveness coming out. We love states to push on us, and we'll do the same. But 1,500 teams. Texas is number 2. So Mike Morath, number 2 is Texas with 1,100. Number 3 is California. Number 4 is Florida. But again, I think we need to continue to make sure our kids across the country are exposed to STEM learning that they enjoy, and robotics has been one of the popular elements in our state.
Well, great. So Indiana has the largest robotics competition for K-12 kids in the country. And
True.
And that's right. In Texas and California and Florida, they've got some work to do to catch you.
Well, they're banging on the door, and let me tell you, Texas and Florida are getting after us in some other areas too. So very humbly, they have bright stars that we're trying to catch up to. But that is a proud statement for us about robotics.
Well, that's great to know about Indiana. And Secretary Jenner, thank you so much for being on Swimming Upstream, and thank you for all the great work you're doing for the kids of Indiana and for the example you are for educators across the country. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tom. Great to see you.
Thank you for listening. And remember, our children may only be 22% of our population, but they represent 100% of our future. If you found this conversation valuable, subscribe to our YouTube channel and find us on your favorite podcast platform. Swimming Upstream is part of the Strategos Podcast Network. To view the entire lineup of our shows, visit our website, strategosgroup.com.